And welcome to members, officers, the press and the public joining this formal meeting of Cabinet taking place today, Tuesday, the 1st of June. For all of those that are joining us via the YouTube live broadcast, welcome. And if it's your first meeting of formal Cabinet, it's always very interesting and exciting because some significant and key decisions are made in this forum, and you're able to go to the agenda by accessing the cabinet meetings via the search toolbar on the council's website. So welcome, and also welcome to council officers and also those members of the executive that are joining us live in real time here at Dockside. To minimise travel and maintain social distancing, most officers will be joining this evening's formal meeting of Cabinet via Zoom. Councillors unable to join the meeting in person are also able to join remotely. But please note that any member of the Cabinet that's attending via Zoom, you will not be able to vote, and your attendance, whilst being noted, won't be officially recorded. With regards to meeting etiquette, please can I ask that you indicate if you wish to speak by raising your hand or by using the hand symbol on the Zoom dashboard. And please can everyone physically present continue to wear their face mask until they are invited to speak. After you've finished speaking, please recover your face. As a reminder, please can I also ask members and officers to introduce themselves when speaking. So we are now going to be jumping into the substantive agenda of tonight's meeting. And as mentioned, this is a formal meeting of Cabinet. I'm going to be coming to agenda item 1 shortly, but before I do, I just wanted to make a few opening remarks to members of Cabinet present, those on Zoom, and also members of the public. You'll have noted over the bank holiday weekend, which was bright and sunny, and many families and individuals and residents in the borough enjoyed being outside. You will have also noted significant news coverage pertaining to the variant first discovered in India. And I just wanted to make a short series of remarks concerning the variant that was first discovered in India by way of reassuring residents here in Newham. We have had 2 clusters of cases involving the variant first discovered in India in the borough, and the public health team are undertaking a range of significant measures to ensure that the requisite and robust contact test and trace operation is in place and is deftly followed. Presently, the public health team here in Newham are being rightly cautious but calm, and are encouraging all residents in the borough to please maintain all those really important public health requirements. When you're out and about, please wear a face mask, especially when you're stepping into any retail or shopping store to buy goods. When you're out and about, please maintain social distancing. Please ensure that you frequently wash your hands, and let's all work together to ensure that we break the transmission of COVID-19 here in our community and the wonderful place that we all love, Newham. I'm also going to be encouraging all of you that will be listening, and for all members and officers, if you are able to extend this message out to your networks here in Newham. When you get the call, please make sure that you seize the opportunity to get vaccinated. It's very evident and clear that the variant first discovered and detected in India has a higher transmissibility rate, and it is now known that even 1 dose of the COVID-19 vaccine won't necessarily protect you from that particular variant of concern. So as soon as you get the call, the text, the message, please, please, please do book an appointment. So on that note, I am going to start with the formal matters of today's Cabinet. So can I just invite Clerk to the committee, Joy, to advise of formal apologies received for absence?
Yes, Chair, we've received apologies from Councillor James Beckles, Charlene McLean, Carleen Lee Parkway, Muzibar Rahman, and also Jen Kitchen will be joining us late.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, so I am now going to be moving on to agenda item 2, that's declarations of interest. Can I ask members of Cabinet here with me in this room for formal Cabinet to advise if there are any declarations of interest pertaining to matters that we're going to be considering this evening? Nope, I can't see any hands raised. Are you okay noting that, Joy?
Yes, I am, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then colleagues, I'm going to be asking you to note the minutes that start on page 9 to page 18 of the agenda pack. And I am going to be assuming that everyone's read the minutes in detail, and I'm going to be asking members of Cabinet only that are in this room with me to raise their hands when I ask if you all approve the minutes. So can I ask members of Cabinet to raise their hands if they approve the minutes? Okay, so I've noted Councillor Zulfikar Ali, Councillor Sarah Ruiz, Councillor Terry Paul, Councillor James Asser, and Councillor Shaban Mohammed, and myself, Mayor Roxana Fiaz. Is that okay, Joy?
Yes, Chair, it is, yeah.
Thank you very much. And now we're going to be jumping on to agenda item 4, which is appointments to outside bodies. And just to advise Clerk to the committee, Joy, I will not be making any announcements to external bodies appointments.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. So we're now going to be jumping into the main agenda items for today's meeting. Agenda item 5, it's the bidding for levelling up funding, and the paperwork before you, including appendices, set out a really compelling set of bid documents, not in complete final form, but documents that give you an overview of 2 bids that we are looking at submitting as the London Borough of Newham, worth up to £40 million as part of a submission to the government's Levelling Up Fund. For members of the public watching, and also for those officers who are with us this evening and members who may not be aware, Newham has been designated Tier 1 status for this Levelling Up Fund bidding process. We are one of 2 local authorities in the capital that have received that designation, the other one being Barking and Dagenham. We have pulled together these bidding propositions as part of a reflection of our ambition and also a reflection of our confidence as a local authority and as an administration. You will all be alert to the national discourse around the levelling up agenda that the government has embarked on. And one of the key features of that is ensuring that those places in the country that for too long have been left behind aren't anymore. Unfortunately and regretfully, the conversation, the national debate around the levelling up agenda as proposed by the government, albeit the government has recognised that it hasn't sufficiently articulated its vision around the levelling up, has suggested a preference to the north of England in the absence of acknowledging that there still requires significant material levelling up in the south of the UK as well, including London. You'll all be aware that Newham is located in the top 10 local areas where there are significant levels of multiple deprivation that exist, and we have communities that have been scarred by poverty and inequality. The purpose of this paper is essentially to go through some of the governance requirements that we have put in place under this administration and in the council to enable officers to finesse and finalise the bids prior to formal submission in the next week or so. And the bids before you have been pulled together through the great work of a team of officers led by the Inclusive Economy and Housing Directorate, Dave Hughes and Carrie Whelan. And they are cared this evening to provide us a bit more detail as required, and also to help me answer any questions. So in terms of the bid, just briefly, the bid 1 has been developed to align to pre-existing work that is underway, whereby we have reorientated our investment focus away from what was called the Arc of Opportunity to the substantive area where a majority of our residents reside. And we, as part of that programme of works, have initiated a Shape Newham programme covering several critical neighbourhoods, including Forest Gate, Manor Park, Little Orford and Stratford, as well as Plaistow and Green Street. And the idea behind bid 1 proposition is that it builds on ensuring that we're able to realise and operationalise our 15-minute neighbourhood concept that is set out in the Towards a Better Newham Recovery Strategy and Action Plan, which we published last July. Bid 2 looks at developing our economy for the future, and it will enable us to deepen our relationships with a raft of local anchor partners, including our higher educational partners, through the linking of the work that we're doing in the Royal Docks Enterprise Zone, the Lower Lee Valley, as well as the Olympic Park area. And it's about ensuring that we're well positioned as a borough for the economy of the future, which is, again, a feature of our Towards a Better Newham Recovery Plan and Action recovery strategy and action plan. So it's all about setting out our ambition to be an innovative and future-looking authority, and enabling our residents to benefit from the skills of the future, and also ensure that we've got a sustainable local economy. And it's very much about strengthening our position regionally in the digital and data growth sectors of the capital, which will bring all those job opportunities that are much needed, particularly for our young people. So I'm going to conclude there and invite Dave Hughes and Carrie Whelan to make any more further remarks and comments before I open up to questions.
Thank you, Mayor. It's Dave Hughes, Corporate Director of Inclusive Economy and Housing. Good overview of the bid. What I would add, however, is that obviously, as the Mayor alluded to, the government has given guidance, which this is their first round of the Levelling Up funds. So there's been a lot of to and fro questions with government about exactly what's needed. I would say that our bid reflects, we believe, a lot of the community priorities that have been articulated to us, particularly during the COVID period. And what we had to do, though, is put forward projects that are actually what are termed shovel-ready or deliverable. We can't just come up with a concept that may take another 6-8 months to develop. We actually need to be on site delivering towards the tail end of this financial year, if not early into the new year. So some members might, and the members of the public might say, well, why didn't you try that project or this project? I think this just really reflects where we are with the number of projects we've developed under Towards a Better Newham, and actually being ready to deliver as the government will assess the bids about their ability to actually be on site and delivering in the current year or early into the next financial year. I don't know if Carrie, we've actually got the team. It's been a good team effort across all directorates. All the directorates have been involved with pulling together the project, which Carrie's been leading on. Carrie, do you want to say anything else regarding the bid?
Not too much more, thank you, Dave, and members, other than to say it has been a cross-departmental exercise, so that we've been able to look at all of the areas that can actually contribute to this bid process and create quite a holistic approach to both of our bids. I think the other issue as well is to recognise, with the timescale that we're working in, that we will continue to work up the concepts within those bids and improve the narrative that will go with that process. We're also working with various sort of experts in the field just to help us continue to develop that narrative along the lines that we've set out in the report. Thank you. I think that's all I need to say. Thank you.
Super. Thank you very much. Cabinet colleagues, anyone here would like to ask a question? I've got Councillor Zulfikar Ali, and then I can see behind me Councillor Rohit Dasgupta.
Thank you, Chair. Can I thank you and officers for bringing this forward? It's a great initiative. Well done for your hard work, and I hope it's going to be a success. My question really is, how do we think that, I mean, clearly we are very innovative, creative, and a lot of ideas been flowing across. So how will this have an impact in terms of our ambitions in a short term and the long term, as Dave, you were describing earlier? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I'm going to pass over to officers. Dave, do you want to take this or Carrie?
Thanks. I'll just, as an overview to that answer, excellent question, Councillor Ali. The bid is a collection of projects that we've already been working up under Towards a Better Newham. So Towards a Better Newham articulates our requirement to develop the 15-minute neighbourhoods. It develops our ambition to actually look at investing in open space and infrastructure to assist with health. But it's also looking at where we are with our new economies. So basically, a lot of investment needs to go into the digital sector and the green sector to make sure that we can bid for funding which will actually help unlock new jobs in those sectors, and we won't just be reliant on maybe job areas such as retail service sector that we've been investing in the past. So it'll have a broad impact across quality of people's life, well-being, but also our employment opportunities. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dave. Councillor Rohit Dasgupta.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, officers. I think this is an excellent proposal, and I'm really happy looking at the Southern Bid proposal, which concentrates on innovation, job growth, skills, and especially the growth of a kind of cultural, creative economy in the southern part of the borough. So I think that's excellent. I just wanted to ask for clarification in terms of the transport investments theme of it. How much is it going to align to green alternatives and 50 steps to a healthier Newham?
Thank you very much. Dave, do you want to take that first?
Yes, I'll take that, but I'll defer straight away to Murray Woodburn, who's from environment side on the transport, who's been heavily involved with the bid. If you introduce yourself, Murray, thank you.
Yes, hello there, Murray Woodburn from Highways and Sustainable Transport. Thank you for that, Councillor Dasgupta. I think you're quite right. We are looking to add to our kind of sustainable and green transport offer by incorporating some elements of that into the package of bidding. So in the Southern Bid, for example, you'll see that we are looking to extend the Greenway to Galleon Street Shopping Centre, to complete Mitchell Walk, which is a key project of ours, to improve the pedestrian routes around the Beckton District Centre and Tollgate Road, and also introduce a number of healthy school street schemes to encourage more sustainable travel to school. So given that Beckton and that whole of the south of the borough is a very car-focused and car-dominated area at the moment, and Galleon Street Shopping Centre and Beckton District Centre are very much of that ilk, given how much of the land area there is devoted to car parking. We're very keen to incorporate this green and sustainable transport element into this Southern Bid. So we believe that what we're proposing to complement the green economy and the connectivity with the cultural and employment opportunities is to provide the opportunity for that sustainable and active travel, physical connectivity, as well as some of the other connectivity concepts that the bid covers. So I hope that answers your question to some extent, Councillor.
Is that okay, Councillor Rohit?
Yeah,
Just
thank
got
you.
to- Yeah? Okay, fine. Any other questions? I've got Councillor James Asser.
If I can get my mask off. Thank you, Mayor. Some of this has been my question has already been answered in the last answer, but I think I'd welcome these bids. I mean, I think there's some important stuff in there, particularly in terms of delivering on our existing projects, particularly around some of the public realm stuff, which is hugely important, both in terms of what residents are looking for, but providing them with alternatives, but also as quite a linchpin in some of our wider economic and development strategies. We've seen, as all councils have, quite the impact financially that the pandemic has had on councils in terms of their resources. And a lot of these kind of projects are resource heavy. We've also seen the impact London councils particularly had on the settlements or the failure of the government to agree a long-term settlement over Transport for London funding, the latest of which comes today. So some of this allows us to continue with projects that might otherwise have been in difficulty, which I think would be helpful. Just want to make sure when we're going forward, because certainly things around things like TfL funding hit all London boroughs, but particularly those of us in the poorer boroughs worse, where we're often dependent on some of these projects, just making sure as we go forward, as other sources of funding come in, that we're linking these in with this, and it's part of a wider package, and all the bits slot together neatly rather than competing for similar bits of funding.
Okay, is there any comment or response from officers? No? Okay, fine. I've just got one question, more for clarification. Dave, I mean, I know the answer, but can you just advise members of Cabinet and the wider executive, but more importantly, members of the public, why this paper has come to Cabinet, given that the submission isn't until the 18th of May, but what is the governance reason as to why this paper has to come to Cabinet?
Yes, certainly, Mayor. The paper needs to come to Cabinet because we obviously want the full endorsement of Cabinet about the prioritisation of the projects we put forward. So I'm proposing that the projects that are in there are the ones that have been prioritised, and it's important that the public see what we're actually putting forward. It's important that the public are fully behind our priorities, and through our various consultation approaches to consultation for Newham, we believe that these are a good reflection of what the Newham residents want. There will be some slight finessing of the actual wording of the bid before it goes in, but I do think it reflects the prioritisation that we want the public to actually get behind and support us with our bid. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And just really to clarify, because each of the bid submissions are up to £20 million under our current scheme of delegation, anything over £1 million has to come to Cabinet for approval. So that's a governance point, yeah? All right, thank you very much. So colleagues, can I just draw your attention to big page number 20 in the agenda pack, recommendations 2.1 for the reasons set out in the report and its appendices. Cabinet is recommended to 2.1.1 note the suggested options for submitting a levelling up fund bid or bids by the 18th of June 2021. 2.1.2 agree that 2 bid submissions are made for levelling up fund of up to £20 million per bid for the following visions, taking into account any further guidance being received from MHCLG. Vision 1, 15-minute neighbourhoods. Vision 2, new connections and opportunities. And 2.1.3, delegate authority to the Corporate Director for Inclusive Economy and Housing in consultation with the Mayor to complete the due diligence, exercise, finalise and submit up to 2 bids to the first and or subsequent rounds of the Levelling Up Fund. I'm going to suggest just a slight amendment to recommendation 2.1.3 as follows. So where it says delegate authority to the Corporate Director for Inclusive Economy and Housing in consultation with the Mayor, I'm going to suggest that in addition, in consultation with the Mayor and Cabinet leads for highways and sustainable transport and finance and resources to complete the due diligence, exercise, finalise and submit up to 2 bids to the first and or subsequent rounds of the Levelling Up Fund. Is everyone acceptable with that? Joy, have you noted that addition?
Yes, I have, yeah.
All right, fine. Thank you very much. So I'm just going to be requesting members of Cabinet only to advise if they agree. So Councillor Zulfikar Ali,
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor Sarah Ruiz,
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor Terry Paul,
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor James Beckles.
No,
Sorry, James Asser. Ooh,
Agreed.
apologies, James. Councillor Shabar Mohammed
Agreed, Chair.
and Mayor Roxana Fiaz agrees. Thank you very much. We're now going to be moving on to agenda item 6. This is consultant and contractor procurement for the New Homes for Newham programme. Colleagues, please note that there is an exempt appendix for this item. So if you have any questions that concern the exempt appendix and you'd like to ask a question, I'm going to have to initiate the removal of public and press for a period. So please indicate to me if you've got a question concerning that section of the report. And then just really by way of an introduction, you'll all be aware that in line with the manifesto commitment, we have an Affordable Homes for Newham programme, in part funded by the largest allocation by the GLA Mayor of London to Newham. And given the ambition around the programme, we are doing everything that we can in streamlining and ensuring that our response and our approach to the start on site is as agile and as optimized as possible. So in essence, this paper enables us to just get things pertaining to consultant and contractor procurement in place, all the governance and processes and procedures that we've got to progress with in operational terms that officers will need to do. We're just going to get the clearance at Cabinet now, but there will be regular reporting back, both to myself as the portfolio lead for this programme, but also to other Cabinet members who are heavily involved in the monitoring and progress tracking of the Affordable Homes for Newham. And those are Councillor Shabar Mohammed, the Cabinet Member for Housing Services, alongside Councillor Terry Paul, Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources. So you'll note that specifically this paper pertains to the consultant and contractor procurement programme for 13 sites and schemes for this year. And as mentioned, it's a more efficient process rather than always coming back to Cabinet for individual approvals for each site. And the 13 sites combined will provide some 570 new homes at a cost of £200 million to construct. So that in essence is what the paper is about. And as mentioned, there's a whole series of assurances that myself as the portfolio lead and 2 other Cabinet members are provided at monthly progress update meetings with officers. And then also there will be another paper that's going to be brought back to Cabinet to seek authority to enter into any of those contracts. So this is just really getting everything lined up. So I'm going to conclude there and again pass over to Dave Hughes and lead officer Chris Holland if you want to make any other comments before I open up to questions.
Thank you, Mayor. That's covered all the issues apart from the fact that we actually do want specifically an approval to have a funding of 2 million to progress a number of reserve schemes. In running any programme this size, it's always important to actually have a couple of reserves that we might need to drop into the programme if other sites were to experience problems. So we've actually asking for an additional fund to be set aside for reserve schemes. The report also asks for Cabinet approval to actually let 4 of the sites go forward for planning. So it's a specific requirement to seek Cabinet approval for those to be appropriated to be taken forward for planning. I'm pretty sure we've covered everything, but I've also got Christopher Holland on from the Affordable Housing teams, whether Chris wanted to add anything.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Mayor. The only thing I'd like to add is that this is all about maintaining momentum on the delivery of the programme. So approval tonight will just make sure we can keep going forward at pace. Other than that, I'm more than happy to answer any questions that the Cabinet want to ask. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, I'm going to just look around. I've got Councillor Rohit Dasgupta. I've got Councillor Terry Paul as well.
Thank you, Mayor. I think, again, this is an excellent paper, and I think it will provide the much needed housing pressure that we have in the borough to help alleviate it. Just a quick question. Over here, it says 568 London affordable rent and shared ownership. I wonder if you've got the ratio of what that's going to be for affordable rent and shared ownership.
Thank you very much. I'm going to pass over to Chris.
I haven't got the exact figures in front of me, but approximately, I'd imagine 500 or thereabouts will be London affordable rent, with the balance being shared ownership, which is a small residual part of the GLA programme, but predominantly it's London affordable rent.
Is that okay?
Yep.
Yep. Okay, Councillor Terry Paul.
Yeah, first of all, I welcome the number of houses, the 568 London affordable rents and the shared ownership. I think we should be congratulated on that. That's the first thing. My question is really on clarity, really. I understand we've got a contractor procurement, but at the same time, we're submitting planning approval for the schemes. Just want to find out, how is this adding value to the project? Is it, 6 months quicker, or just to give me that so I can get the project in my head?
So if you, Councillor Paul, if you think that every project has a programme, a project plan that says you've got to go through the various stages as you intimated, planning, etc. If we were to wait till we got planning consent or submitted for planning and then go back to Cabinet for approval to go out to get the tendering process in place, that would basically cost us another 3 months for every scheme. So we're getting this effectively a programme level approval for the procurement contractors in advance, subject obviously to all those due diligence on those individual sites. It will probably on average save us about 3 months per site.
Okay, so the residents of Newham are getting their homes quicker?
They'll get them homes quicker and will also be more likely to achieve the targets both for the mayoral promise and, more importantly, GLA. Yeah.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
Just with the only caveat I would hasten to add, because some of these schemes will need to go to planning and subject to a planning determination on part of planning committee, and that is separate from any decisions made here at Cabinet this evening. It's a judgment call that they make based on material considerations and officer recommendations as set out by officers that work under the auspices of the local planning authority. Is that right, Dave and Chris?
Yeah, apologies, Mayor, I hadn't made that clear. So basically, we'll be carrying out due diligence on all these sites, including the planning process. So each site is subject to consultation with residents, etc., and ward councillors, subject to the whole planning process. And we will not be going out to tender on any of these sites until, as a minimum, we've actually submitted for planning, i.e. we've got a gateway approval from the Regeneration Housing Board, but more likely there's actually, we've already had a planning consent achieved by committee. But yes, it's completely separate from the planning process.
I would add, Mayor, just that in carrying out that process of applying for planning, we obviously put a lot of effort into consultation with local residents. So when the application's received, they're fully aware of what we're trying to achieve, and we actually try and work hard to make sure we mitigate any impacts on those surrounding residents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, are there any other questions that I can take from anyone? Nope. Right, okay, so we're going to be just going straight on to the recommendations. Just give me a moment. So the recommendations as set out on page big number 39, running from 2.1 through to 2.1.6. And in the interests of time, I will not read them all out because it's a hefty chunk. But just to assure members of the public that may be watching, all of this will be documented. So as per the recommendations set out on big page number 39, can I ask the following members of Cabinet to advise if they approve? So Councillor Zulfikar Ali.
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor Sarah Ruiz.
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor Terry Paul.
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor James Asser.
Agreed.
Councillor Shaban Mohammed.
Agreed, Chair.
Mayor Roxana Fiaz even agrees. Thank you. Right, now we're going to be moving on to Agenda item 7. Before I pass over to Councillor Shaban Mohammed to make some introductory remarks, just a notice to clerk to the committee, but also members of cabinet. If you note agenda item 11, Plaistow Library relocation, that agenda item is being withdrawn tonight because we don't have the presence of the cabinet member or the deputy cabinet member in order to present. Has that been noted, Joy?
Yes, it has, Mayor, yeah.
Thank you very much. Councillor Shaban Mohammed.
Thank you, Chair. This paper sets out a proposal to end the council's shared equity scheme after 8 years and 305 property sales. The properties sold via New Share were a mix of new build and refurbished council properties. We are, since taking office in 2018, we made the commitment to provide 50% social accommodation at social rents within the council's affordable homes for Newham programme and a new house building programme. Housing remains one of the council's key priorities, with over 31,000 people on the waiting list and 5,860 households in temporary accommodation. The new share scheme was created to shift resources from affordable and social rented accommodation to low-cost ownership, principally through the sale of void council properties. For this reason, it is recommended that the council decide to end the scheme because the sale of empty council properties cannot be tolerated. When we know our residents are struggling to secure social housing within the borough. 2018, this administration made a clear decision to end the scheme to ensure no further council homes were refurbished for sale. And by September 2018, we returned council properties back to council stock so they could be let as originally intended as social housing for our residents. The sales that were already in progress, part of the developments were a key product, the product was key to viability. S106 funding agreements were seen through as part of the process of winding down the scheme. The decision now formally to end the new share scheme will have no impact on the current new share owners who have already purchased under the scheme. The council commitments for housing is set out in our ambitious new housing delivery strategy approved by the cabinet earlier this month, and it is therefore entirely appropriate that we terminate this scheme. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Shaban Mohammed. I'm just going to be inviting officer colleagues. Is there anything else officer colleagues like to add? Darren Levy or Donna Morelli?
Nothing more to add, Chair. This is a point of process to close down the scheme, and just to reaffirm that point that people who've already bought under the new share scheme will continue to be managed within the scheme, but it will just be no more properties being sold.
All right, thank you very much. Donna, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, nothing more than that's already been said. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, can I just invite any questions on this paper? I've got Councillor Sarah Ruiz.
Thank you, Mayor. Just very briefly, I don't know, just really for the residents' benefits, how does ending the new share scheme benefit our residents?
The key focus of ending the new share scheme is to no longer sell empty properties, so it retains those properties within the council stock to ensure we've got the maximum number of properties available as social housing.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Nope. Okay, so I am going to be... Sorry, just give me a moment. Okay, so colleagues, can I just draw your attention to the recommendations that start on big page number 55 and then go over to the next page. So I'm going to read these out because there aren't that many. Recommendations 2.1, for the reasons set out in the report and its appendices, Cabinet is recommended to agree the ending of the new share scheme and a delegation to the Director of Housing in consultation with a Cabinet member for Housing Services to effect all such arrangements necessary to end the scheme. So can I ask whether the following Cabinet members agree or otherwise? Councillor Zulfikar Ali?
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor Sarah Ruiz?
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor Terry Paul?
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor James Asser?
Agreed.
Councillor Shaban Mohammed?
Agree, Chair.
Mayor Roxana Fiaz agrees. Okay, that's that. Thank you very much. And now we're going to be jumping on to agenda item 8. Colleagues, this is the Canning Town Regeneration Programme. Again, this is a report that seeks to procure expert professional services and input for the purposes of us accelerating on our development, restoration, revival plans for the Canning Town area, a particular neighbourhood that has been long neglected, and the purpose of this paper is to get the necessary approvals to expedite the development of a master plan, associated planning applications for that part of Canning Town. So the Canning Town Regeneration Project, as set out in this report, is part of wider ambitions that we have for that part of the borough, and it is very much linked to the Custom House regeneration programme that is underway, and both of them are amongst the most significant regeneration programmes that we have initiated and accelerated since 2018. And the development of the Canning Town piece will very much help aid our requirement to increase much needed, genuinely affordable homes for our residents. So the estimated cost of this programme and the proposed procurement route, the estimated cost is some £6 million, and the proposed procurement route is via the compliant frameworks. And so, as mentioned, the paper is seeking authority to delegate the award of contract on completion of the procurement exercise, because this is similarly tied to some very, very exacting timeframes and is contingent on monies that we've received from the GLA. So in a similar vein to the earlier procurement paper that came to help us ensure that we've got everything lined up, this is a similar paper. So I'm going to just pause there and just invite Dave Hughes or Caroline Peele to add any additional comments on this.
Thank you, Mayor. It's David Hughes again, the Corporate Director of Inclusive Economy and Housing. Canning Town is actually now looking at the final phases for regeneration, and as the Mayor said, it's important that we actually get the projects developed as quickly as possible. I'm pleased to say that we have got full engagement with the local residents in the area, and they're fully supportive of the approach that we're developing. But it's important now that we actually develop detailed designs of which we can ballot local residents on. I've got with me Caroline on the Custom House and Estate Regeneration Project. So I'll just invite Caroline to say a few words about next steps and progress. Thank you.
I think you're mute, Caroline. We can't hear you.
Sorry, forgive me.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Oh, thank you. That's odd. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Cabinet, and thank you, Dave. There's not a great deal more to add, only that, as the Mayor alluded to, this scheme, our intention for this initial phase of the Canning Town Estate Regeneration is also to have it funded through the GLA, the current GLA bid round, so that we can secure the funding that's already been allocated. As Dave quite rightly says, we do have a very active resident steering group that's been set up, have been involved for a number of months now, who we meet with monthly, and are involving them in the wider co-production initiative that the council has embarked on, which is happening on both Custom House and Canning Town. Also, just to add that this the 6 million, what was already in existence was 4.5 million, that had already been allocated and approved. What we're actually seeking here is an additional 1.5 million to bring it up to the 6 million, just to make that point clear. And as the Mayor has quite rightly pointed out, again, this is for the appointment of a master planning team to bring this quite key strategic site forward. There is a team already appointed also and dedicated to this estate regeneration, and that team is ready really to hit the ground running with as soon as that the master planners are appointed. And I'll stop there and take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, so are there any questions, colleagues?
Yes.
Nope. Oh, I've got Councillor Jane Loftus.
Thank you, Chair. Really just wonder if you could expand on how you can be sure that this master plan will actually accelerate the regeneration of Canning Town and Custom House. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. What the master planning itself is actually for the entire estate. What we are wanting to do is, with the appointment of the design team, actually accelerate the design of the first phase of the estate, which is already a vacant site. It's been vacant for some time. And what that allows us to do is to decant existing residents from the estate into this vacant development. Currently, it's all planned to be affordable so that it allows us to decant, and then we can actually progress with the wider estate regeneration. The plan is, Councillor, to apply for a detailed application for this initial phase. So it will be a hybrid application and then an outline application for the wider estate.
Councillor Loftus, if I could just add as well, I think the fact that we're obviously looking to move residents from one property to the new development, it's really important that we can actually show them what the master plan homes are going to look like, what type of design they are, the internal layout, how they configure together. So the master plan is really important to not only align our development work, but also have consultation so residents appreciate the improvements and the new properties that they're going to be moving into. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jane Loftus.
Yes, that's lovely.
Thank you very much. Okay, unless there are, I've got a question from Councillor Rohit Dasgupta.
Sorry, just a very quick question. If I've understood it correctly, so first of all, I welcome the report as a Canning Town resident. This is very exciting. If I've got it understood it correctly, Dave, that this would be achievable only if we are successful on the Homes for Londoners grant from the GLA. If we weren't successful, do we have a plan B for that?
May I?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, yes, indeed. You're absolutely right. Where the plan A is to secure the GLA, the grant through the current pot. We do have a plan B, part of which is in development, but there is section 106 that we may be able to call upon. We've got to also consider the fact that the funding that the alternative funding that is available is also earmarked to help deliver both Custom House and Carpenter's Estate. So we are certainly, Councillor, very much looking at Plan B and alternative routes to fund should we be unsuccessful with GLA.
Mayor and Councillor, it's just worth pointing out for members of the public watching, they might be aware, but section 106 is the contribution we get from development. So you've seen a lot of private sector development taking place across the borough and particularly at Canning Town. So obviously what we get to do is to use the funds that we actually extract from those developments to actually provide affordable housing in the area if the grant funding was no longer available from the GLA. Thank you.
Is that okay? Yeah. All right, super. I can't see any other questions or hands up. well, you can't see questions. You can hear questions. Right, okay, let me just get to the recommendations. Right, recommendations are set out on big page number 61. I am going to quickly read these out. 2.1, for the reasons set out in the report and its appendices, Cabinet is recommended to agree. 2.1.1, approval to procure professional services at the overall estimated cost of £6 million to support the preparation of a master plan together with detail and hybrid planning applications for the Canning Town Regeneration Programme, previously referred to as Canning Town East, and location as noted in Appendix 2. The procurement process will comply with relevant council standing orders and the proposed routes to market for these procurements, subject to para 5.5, are listed in the table on big page number 62. Then furthermore, recommendation 2.1.2, delegate authority for the award and entering into contracts on conclusion of procurement to the Corporate Director of Inclusive Economy and Housing in consultation with the lead member for Regeneration Planning and Strategic Housing Delivery and lead member for Housing Services. And 2.1.3, to note that a budget adjustment to fund the increase to £6 million in the cost of preparing a master plan and planning submission will form part of a future report to Cabinet planned for July 2021 in respect of capital budgets. So I'm going to be going to Cabinet members to request approval. Councillor Zulfikar Ali.
Agreed, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Sarah Ruiz.
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor Terry Paul.
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor James Beckles. Sorry, Asa even.
I'm happy to fill in for both. Agreed, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Shaban Mohammed.
Agreed, Chair.
And Mayor Oksana Fiaz agrees. Thank you very much. We're now going to be jumping on to the next agenda item, and this is agenda item 9, recommendation for contract award rough sleeping integrated support services. Over to you, Councillor Zulfikar Ali.
Thank you very much, Chair. As we all know that we have as a authority, as a cabinet and the council committed and showed our determination to ensure that we support our vulnerable community as much as we can. And our exceptional hard work has actually made a big difference. And I'm sure cabinet members and indeed members of the public who are watching us, we're pleased to know that we have achieved the highest reduction in rough sleeping in the United Kingdom. We have seen a 91% reduction in our rough sleeping population over the last year. Now, this is despite the fact that we haven't had adequate funding from the government. We increased our own budget to 1.4 million last year, and we've given this service a great deal of priority. And collectively, I really thank the Mayor and indeed my cabinet colleagues, because over the last 18 months or so, we have taken a number of decisions in terms of improving the quality of service here. We did the rough sleeping and homelessness strategy, and that was the first one in the 10 years. We went ahead and actually developed various processes and systems to make sure that we have a proper pathway which looks at stabilizing and also giving independence to people. And back in April 2021, only a couple of months back, or less than a month, frankly, we agreed to purchase a site which will be a rough sleeping assessment center. And that will be a center of excellence for this vulnerable community. Chair, as I said earlier, we had the biggest reduction, and the situation now is that we have rough sleepers in single figures, and that's the biggest achievement. And this indeed is a flagship service which has been well recognized nationally, and I'm sure some of my colleagues will acknowledge and remember that the Secretary of State has actually regarded this an exemplary service across the country. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank our officers and indeed the cabinet colleagues for their commitment that they've shown over the last 12 months or so by having agreed so many different cabinet reports on this subject, which shows the determination, commitment of this council and the priorities that we've given to tackling rough sleeping in the borough. And as Chair report recommends, the key feature of this is actually a rough sleeping and homeless assessment center. And having gone through a pretty tough competitive process, this cabinet report recommends the award of contract to a consortium of suppliers led by Change Grow Live, which includes New Days and Anchor House. All of these organizations are based in Newham and are already performing an excellent service for the community that they serve. And that is also, if I may say, is quite strongly embedded in the community wealth building strategy that we have. So without further ado, Chair, I would ask the Cabinet to approve the recommendation. And I have officers here and myself, and if there are any questions, we'll be more than happy to answer. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Zulfikar Ali. Can I see if any officer colleagues would like to contribute at this stage before we open up to questions? So I'm looking at Colin Ansell, Simon Reed, or Carl Henson. Nope.
Thank you, Mayor. Colin Ansell, Corporate Director of Adults and Health. Just very quickly, just to add, so the services that we've procured via this framework create the baseline and the basis and the foundation for us to move all of our services forward. So not only does it create the core funding as part of the 1.4 million that the administration approved, it also provides us with the opportunity to expand those services as more funding becomes available, such as the Rough Sleeping Initiative and other government initiatives. So I think that's all I wanted to add. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Colin. And can I use this opportunity to commend yourself, officers Carl Henson, Simon Reed, and other colleagues involved in this, because I know that this has been quite a mean feat to get to this point, and just really want to commend you and personally thank you for all of your efforts in this regard, because you know it's a really important priority for us as an administration. And my respects and commendation also to Councillor Zulfikar Ali for driving this through. Thank you very much. So do we have any questions that people would like to ask? I've got Councillor Terry Paul.
Thank you, Mayor. And also just to echo the Mayor's comments towards you, Zulfikar, and your officers. And just to remind people that in April, it's 3.24 million we spent in capital to acquire Lady Helen Seymour House, which is a fantastic facility. And just to really to build on what you said, Zulfikar, so these support services, are they to add to the building or are they separate to it? Because it's a fantastic project. Just to try and knit the two together, I'm trying to think, how does it work or doesn't it work?
Thank you. I'll let Colin and Carl to give it in detail, but I think all I will say at this stage here is that Lady Seymour House is going to be an interim assessment center. So rather actually us waiting for the new contractor arrangements to be in place, we're moving ahead. We're not actually wasting any time. So we're simply setting things up in order to make sure that we get going. I don't know whether Colin or Carl or Simon wish to add anything.
So I'll try and answer this, and then Carl can fill in any of the gaps, and so can Simon. So the procurement of these services, Councillor Paul, provides the framework for all of the services we want for rough sleeping, including for the assessment centre. So it's inbuilt into the procurement that we've done. So the accommodation has been agreed, but these are the services that will be delivered from that building in the future.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you, Zulfikar. Thank you, officers. Thank you.
Yeah, and I've got Councillor Sarah Ruiz.
Thank you. And I think we're in a remarkable place when you think where we were 18 months, 2 years ago. So not wishing to labour the point, but I think actually a vote of thanks from us all should go to you and your team, Colin, and to Zulfikar, because I think this has been a Herculean to actually get to where we are. My question really was about, you know, if we go back maybe a year ago and we had the awful scenes in Stratford Mall, and we we've managed to move on all the rough sleepers from Stratford Mall. I just wondered what our plans were going forward, because I'm not sure whether the court order is still live or whether we've got to do anything more. It's just that we don't really want to slip back into Stratford Mall being used again.
Thank you, Chair. And that's a very good question. And clearly, Stratford Mall has made a big impact in terms of safety around the area completely. I could update you that the existing order, which we have been getting from the Magistrates Court on a regular basis, is actually expiring on 14th of June.
Okay.
And our plans are to make a further application for another period of 6 months. And then during that period, and very shortly, you will be getting a cabinet report back from the service area, yet another one, to give you various options quite clearly and distinctly to see what are the benefits, strengths, and risks of each of those options. And the kind of options that are being looked at are whether we should be closing that through Traffic Management Act. These are all legal issues that we need to explore, whether we should be introducing some public protection orders, or there's something else, which is highways, stopping up of Highways Act. There are different options and these are being evaluated, and a further report will be coming to you very, very shortly in order to make a final decision in order to progress things so that we may not need to go for further extension after the next 6 months, assuming we get that. Thank you. I hope that, I don't know whether Colin or Carl or Simon wish to add anything? No? Thank you.
Nope. Okay, fine. I cannot see any more questions or hands raised. Oh, I keep on saying that. You can't see questions. Right. Okay. So I'm going to be drawing everyone's attention to recommendations on big page number 76, and I shall read them out. Recommendations. For the reasons set out in the report and its appendices, Cabinet is recommended to 2.1.1, award the Integrated Rough Sleeping Support Services contract to Change Grow Live, commencing on the 1st of September for a period of 3 years. 2.1.2, note that the contract contains 2 optional extension periods of 12 months each, and delegate authority to the Corporate Director of Adults and Health in consultation with the lead member for Adults and Health to extend the initial term of the contract for 1 or more 12-month periods. And 2.1.3, note that the contract consists of a core work package and 4 additional and optional work packages, and delegate authority to the Corporate Director of Adults and Health in consultation with the lead member for Adults and Health to authorise call off of 1 or more additional work packages on an annual basis, subject to the considerations set out in this report. See section 3.5 for more details. So, do we all agree? Councillor Zulfikar Ali.
Agreed, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Sarah Ruiz.
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor Terry Paul.
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor James Assa.
Agreed.
Councillor Shaban Mohammed.
Agreed, Chair.
Mayor Roxana Fiaz agrees. Thank you very much. Now let's jump on to the next agenda item, and this is agenda item 10, domestic abuse accommodation services. Again, I will be handing over to Councillor Zulfikar Ali and relevant officers. Over to you, Zulfikar.
Thank you very much indeed, Chair, again. And as we all know, Chair, that as part of your commitments and our corporate priorities, making Neom the best place for our children and family is a key part of our ambitions and the activities that we've been undertaking. And as part of these priorities, we are indeed committed to addressing domestic abuse and sexual violence in the borough. So to support these vulnerable residents, we are currently commissioning a number of services for all genders aged 16 plus, and this also includes advocacy and refuge service. Chair, you may recall, and the Cabinet colleagues, you may recall discussions we've had earlier with respect to the existing provision with the London Black Women's Group, who have historically provided this service for many years. We've extended these existing arrangements with them in order to fundamentally review the service in light of changing needs and ongoing pressures. And COVID pandemic and review of service priorities during this period have impacted on this work, and as it did in other areas clearly. As such, interim arrangements until the new contract is going to be in place are requested. As you will note from the report, Chair, that we have the second highest reporting of sexual violence in London. And unfortunately, domestic violence continues to rise, not helped by pandemic and lockdown. As such, it's important that we review existing arrangements to ensure we provide a refuge service that's fit for purpose and meets our ongoing needs. And this report provides you details of the number of people who we have accommodated during the previous years. And we have undertaken extensive market engagement as part of this process, which did include the incumbent London Black Women's Group. Our aim here is to commission new services that recognize the needs of our community here, giving degree of independence to women to lead their lives and are supported. This will also recognize the trauma that these women and children go through. I can also say that our officers have engaged women as a key stakeholder in the design of the new service specification, and they will also be part of the contract monitoring processes, because customer satisfaction is seen as an integral part of the new approach. This will be a 5+2 contract, and extension past 5 years will be subject to achieving key performance indicators, which will be constantly monitored. Our historic budget for this service has remained at £198,000, and this is what we're using as a baseline for this contract for future. There is likelihood that there may potentially be more funding from the government channel through the GLA as a result of the Domestic Abuse Bill Act 2021, but this may include specialist refuge provision, which will be explored further. So I will leave it there, Chair. I commend the recommendation to you. I ask Colin or Fiona if they wish to add anything further.
Colin Ansell, Corporate Director, Adults and Health. I think that the only thing that I would add is the Commission is very specific around the types of individuals that will support, and that's contained within the report. Fiona and Shah, who are on at the meeting, have been conducting a lot of soft market testing with the provider groups, and this will continue during this procurement process. But no, there's nothing else I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions, colleagues? I've got Councillor Siraruz, Councillor Rohit Dasgupta.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, this may well be a question and a discussion for another day, but are we convinced that the new contract will provide us with sufficient, will be sufficient to meet the ever increasing demand on that service?
I'll just make a quick start and ask Colin to come in. In terms of demand, Sarah, the service requests come through a central system, so it's difficult to determine exactly how much that will increase, because people are being placed across the board. But certainly there is a provision within locally arrangements to see how best we can improve those. And that is the work that we do with the Children's Services, Police and others in order to determine the local needs. I'll ask Colin or Fiona if they could provide you a bit more details.
Thank you, Councillor Raddy. Just to add, so in terms of the amount of accommodation, it's important to remember that actually most victims are placed outside of the borough for their safety. So it's not about the provision per se that we have in the borough, it's the reciprocal arrangements that we have. We've done benchmarking locally, and we compare favourably with other boroughs. But I think the point is valid around the amount of accommodation that's available. And certainly one of the things that we've been discussing during COVID-19 is those sort of hidden agendas that will come forward in the future. So it's certainly something that we'll keep a very close eye on.
Thank you, Colin.
Yep, Councillor Rohit Dasgupta.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Ali, for this. I think it's really important that the report kind of talks about the need for not just services for for domestic abuse, but also the fact that you need to have culturally appropriate and sensitive. So I really I'm very happy to see that. And I think it's absolutely criminal. I think that that there is no central government and national funding for this sort of service, which is so important for us. Just a question is that, so I understand this procurement is going to be for 7 years, 5+2, and then there is a domestic abuse bill that is going through Parliament, which would then make it a statutory duty of the government to fund this, if that's not wrong. How would that affect this? Because if that were to happen, does it mean we would be able to put in less, with the government funding this? What's the mechanism?
Thank you for that excellent question. Chair, if I may come in. My understanding is that the funding that will be coming through as a result of the genuine legislation will be through GLA, and those commissioning arrangements will be undertaken by GLA. I'll ask Colin if you wish to add anything else.
Thank you, Chair. I'll actually ask Fiona if she wants to comment on this question, if that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and Cabinet members. You're completely correct, and actually the Domestic Abuse Bill is now enacted. It was enacted at the end of April. it does place a statutory duty on local authorities. The only exception to that is indeed in London, where that statutory duty is actually being placed on the GLA. We're currently in conversation with them about what that means in terms of any funding allocation that they have. We currently understand that a fair amount of that might be for quite specialist refuge provision, a bit like this, but around other groups. So it may well include provision for LGBTQ, for people with mental health issues who often can't get into refuges because their mental health issues are more than the refuge can deal with, or indeed transgender victims of domestic abuse. A lot of local authorities, as Colin said earlier, we kind of commission this on a reciprocal basis, where we expect very few Newham residents to actually go to the refuge that's commissioned by Newham. But the additional money that will now come down to some local authorities, some of whom haven't actually been commissioning refuge in the past, may well mean that there is additional capacity in those other areas for our residents. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, may I?
Yeah, of course.
I think one of the areas of concern where we, when we would discuss this previously, was the issue of young men, I suppose they are, over the age of 16, who were not necessarily permitted to stay within that family group at the refuge. And I just wondered whether that had been, we'd done any looking into that, Fiona. I'll ask Fiona.
Ask me directly. Thank you, Councillor Ruth. It's a kind of unwritten standard within the sector, and I understand why it causes problems where there are families with kind of young men within them really at 16, but it's often there in terms of being put there as a kind of way of being seen of protecting women and younger children from young men who often may not present any risk, but for whom the women might find it quite concerning to be with someone who looks like an adult man. I think the only thing that we can say is that within Newham, if we had families where there were young men over 16 as part of that family, we would look very carefully at alternatives to refuge, the sort of, safe accommodation, temporary accommodation within the borough, where we could ask the kind of community-based service to be offering similar support as to someone would get in a refuge. So I don't think refuge is necessarily the only answer for our residents in terms of providing them with a response to domestic abuse that is actually centred around the entire family and doesn't exclude any young men within that family.
Thank you, Fiona.
Okay, any other questions? No? Right, so we're going to be going through to the recommendations on big page number 85. So recommendations for the reasons set out in the report and its appendices, Cabinet is recommended to 2.1.1 agree the reprocurement of the domestic abuse accommodation services for a contract with a period of 7 years, 5 + 2 years, at a total cost of £1.386 million. That's 198,000 per annum, with the service commencing on the 1st of April 2022. And recommendation 2.1. Sorry, let me start again. And recommendation 2.1.2, agree to further extend the current contract with London Black Women's Project for accommodation-based women's refuge services to ensure service continuity until the 31st of March 2022 at a total cost of £164,940 as set out in the body of this report. So, Cabinet colleagues only, do you approve Councillor Zulfikar Ali?
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor Sarah Ruiz?
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor Terry Paul?
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor James Asser?
Agreed.
Councillor Shaban Mohammed?
Agreed, Chair.
Mayor Roxana Fiaz agrees. Thank you very much, colleagues, and well done, officers. And welcome to your first formal Cabinet meeting, Charmaine. I hope you enjoyed it. All right.
Thank you very much, I have.
It's okay, brilliant. I'm so pleased that you're here. She's an amazing contribution. Thank you very much. Right, so we are not going to be doing agenda item 11, which is the Plaistow Library relocation, because we don't have the Cabinet member or Deputy Cabinet member responsible for this area presenting. And then that means we have got the final agenda item, and this is the Scrutiny Commission report, Children and Young People's Health Vaccinations Review Report Recommendations, pages 141, 176. Now, I also wanted to welcome to today's cabinet meeting our member colleague, Councillor Aisha Chowdhury, who is Chair of Health and Adult Social Care Commission. So welcome, Aisha. And I will be inviting the Cabinet Lead for Health and Adult Social Care to provide an additional response, well, an initial response, having reviewed with other Cabinet colleagues, primarily Cabinet Lead for Children and Young People Services and the Cabinet Lead for Brighter Futures. And no doubt Sarah may wish to contribute. So how best to approach this? Zulfikar, would you like to say a few words, and then I'll invite Councillor Aisha to say a few words as well, or vice versa? What would you?
I don't. Flexible, Chair. Thank you for the welcome anyway. Yeah, I'm flexible, Councillor Ali. What do you want me to do? Shall I go first or?
Go ahead, Aisha.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the invite. The Scrutiny Commission agreed to look at the issue of children and young people's vaccination as part of its work program. We started to take evidence in October 2019. It seems like a long time ago. The thing that struck the Commission when we began to take evidence from witnesses was that a lot of work was taking place to ensure that New Hampshire's vaccination uptake among children and young people would increase across a number of vaccinations, including MMR. What the Commission wanted to do was to keep monitoring the coordinating work that was being conducted by public health team along its health partners to make sure that this happened. The Commission made a number of recommendations in terms of supporting the work of the public health team to this end. With this in mind, Scrutiny Commission agreed to hold a second evidence session about 8 months on to get an update on the recommendations that were made at the first evidence session. The Commission also agreed to take evidence from a representative of Public Health England to get a broader understanding of the picture of vaccination uptake in New Hampshire. This was meant to take place in March last year, but of course, the first national lockdown of combat the coronavirus pandemic being at the same time. So we had to cancel this session, but luckily we were able to hold this evidence session in September 2020 to complete the Commission's evidence by hearing from Dr. Heffarman and Rehana Ahmed from Public Health England. The Commission's recommendations from the second evidence sessions were focused on the Council's learning from a pilot being conducted in Croydon alongside Public Health England to look at different messaging to parents that will encourage them to get their children vaccinated and stick to the immunization scheduled through the months and years required. The other recommendation focused on looking at whether the Council could purchase drive-through vaccination centers like those that we use for the testing and vaccination for the coronavirus. Finally, we went the Council to see if using different type of community venues might encourage more parents to get their children vaccinated. The review was very informative and was really interesting to hear about all the work the public health team and health partners were doing to improve vaccination uptaking in the borough. On that note, I hope that the Mayor and the Cabinet accept the recommendation and we can see the recommendation implemented. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you so much, Councillor Chowdhury. That was very, very helpful. Councillor Zulfikar Ali.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Chowdhury, for those very kind words. And can I also thank you and your Commission for such a due diligence and the hard work that Commission has undertaken in terms of scrutinizing quite in depth, not only our own departments, but also our health partners, because clearly they're the people who we work with. And your recommendations have been well acknowledged. And as you will see from the response from the executive, a number of those items have already been moving forward, and we will continue to make sure that they are delivered as part of our future priorities. And I'm sure, we all know, Chair, that as part of the Mayor's commitments, we want to work with NHS to deliver excellent outcomes for our residents, and we want to press ahead for health and social care structures and NUM to be based locally, and NUM-based services which are locally accountable and publicly provided and democratically controlled. So in terms of engagement and immunization, there is an action plan which is being developed along with its stakeholders and partners. And immunization contributes to our delivery of strategic outcomes with NUM's framework with Pillar 1, Pillar 2, and we have integrated this within our 50 steps of health. So developing an action plan is part of the plan. We're using data to monitor and evaluate tools in our decision making. We are stock taking in terms of what we've learned during the pandemic to make sure that we develop action plans which are reflective of the past experiences, and we strengthen our strategy relationship with our partners in delivering those. And so I do express my gratitude to you, Councillor Chowdhury, and your commission for the hard work you've done. And I hope that the executive response is something that will go a long way, but that is not the only action. We have a further forward plan as well, working across directors to make sure that there are integrated approaches to deliver immunization, improve on the current performance along with our GP practices and NHS partners, so that we can protect our people, our young children to the best of our ability. So thank you, Chair. That's all I'll say at this stage.
Thank you very, very much. Right. Councillor Sarah Rose, would you like to add anything?
I don't think so, Chair. I think that Councillor Ali and Councillor Chowdhury have both covered anything that I would have covered. I'm sure that, I look forward to seeing an improved relationship across the piece about looking at vaccinations, although vaccinations seem to be a hot topic at the moment.
Okay, thank you very much. I can see Councillor Terry Paul wanting to ask a question.
Yeah, just to thank Councillor Chowdhury and the Commission for the work, and also for officers for the response. I was pretty struck by the MMR rates, especially the lack of the MMR2 at 5 years. And obviously so that was quite stark. So thank you for bringing that to attention. And just a comment, really, is it something in the future we say as a target for ourselves? We want to be at the London or England average at some point in the future, because obviously there is an increase in measles. We got the 5th highest outbreaks as in your report, but also bear in mind we've got other public health issues facing us today. The whole area of public health is much broader. So just really a comment, but I really welcome the report. I enjoyed reading it. We don't often say that about scrutiny reports, do we? But I actually learned quite a lot doing this. So can I thank you? And that comment was just because of the seriousness of the issue, because you brought it out, just to make that comment. Is it something in the future? And that probably can be dealt with outside, but well done on the report. Really great report, and thank you.
Sure, can I just?
Of course.
Thank you so much. I'll go from the reverse order. Thank you very much, Councillor Terry Paul, for your kind words. And I'm really happy that you have enjoyed the report. That means I might come more often with more reports. Yes, of course, we have to continue as an authority, we have to continue all the efforts and hard work with our partners, health partners, to make sure that young people are vaccinated and the rates goes up. Besides that, during pandemic and in the near future, next 2-3 years are going to be difficult, tough. And personally, I wish to continue mental health and some other issues. People in the community are struggling, suffering, and it is going to be increased. It's not going to be decreased in the near future. So we all have to work continuously hard and make sure that people are healthy physically and mentally. I would like to say a huge thank you to both Councillor Sarwis and Councillor Ali. You both have been really helpful and supporting, and of course our officers. So I would like to say thank you to everyone. I acknowledge the official response, and in due course the report will be presented to the council. Thank you very much everyone for your time.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And also, can I just echo the comments by Councillor Terry Paul and Zulfikar around the report and its contents, and to thank you and other commission members as well as clerks to your commission. Thank you very much. So just in terms of recommendations, the executive is recommended as set out on big page number 141. The executive is recommended to review, consider and respond to the Children and Young People's Health Vaccinations Review, and the response is set out in the appendices as well. So can I just confirm noting of all of that? So Councillor Zulfikar Ali.
Noted, Chair.
Councillor Sarah Ruiz.
Noted, Chair.
Councillor Terry Paul.
Noted, Chair.
Councillor James Asser.
Yes, noted.
Councillor Shaban Mohammed.
Noted, Chair.
And Mayor Roxana Fiaz noted. Thank you very much, colleagues. We now come to the end of our cabinet meeting, and I just wanted to conclude by once again thanking all members of cabinet, Councillor Aisha Chowdhury, and all officers that have been involved in the production of the reports. Also, let's not forget the brilliant support by Clerk to the Committee Joy, and also other officers here who have ensured the smooth running of today's event, both in our physical space as well as online. And Adrian especially, and forgive me because I can't remember other officers' names, or I haven't been told them actually, otherwise I would personally say thank you. So well done, and I look forward to seeing you all at next month's July cabinet, which will be a bumper one. Yeah. Take care, everyone, and enjoy your evening and the last vestiges of the sun.
Thank you.
If sun have vestiges, do they, Anne? They